Okay, all right. Happy holidays, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about the two cameras that I own right now, and this is currently a pretty hot topic on YouTube, and that's the Canon EOS R versus the R6. These two cameras are a pretty hot topic on YouTube right now because they are the more affordable options for Canon users to start to get into the mirrorless lineup. Now there is the Canon EOS RP, but I think that something that a lot of consumers are starting to realize is that if you go with the Canon EOS RP, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot of user-friendly features and also a lot of some important hardware features in the camera that are gonna kind of slow you down as a professional. So if you're getting into photography, or even if you just need a simple video camera for YouTube or family, documenting family moments, I think the RP is a great choice, but anything beyond that, I would just kind of stay away from that. And that's from someone who that's coming from someone who used to own two of those cameras. Okay, so just to give you some background information on my experience with these cameras is, like I said, I started out with the Canon EOS RP cameras, and they got me far enough into the Canon EOS lineup and familiar enough with the new mirrorless cameras to feel comfortable with making the switch from Nikon to Canon for more video work. So I decided to sell both of my Canon EOS RP cameras to acquire the Canon EOS R, and to me that was a great decision because the camera is a lot more functional for video work, which is what I'm trying to get into a little bit more nowadays. So after a while, I would say probably about 7 to 8 months of use with the Canon EOS R, I decided to get the R6 when it came out. To me, that really was an essential purchase. I really rely on 2 card slots, and honestly, it's really nerve-wracking going into a professional photography or video shoot knowing that you don't have an immediate backup. Now, I was kind of able to work around that limitation by leaving the SD card in the camera and just connecting the USB-C directly to my computer, so I didn't actually have to take the SD card out, which I think is the moment in which the card is the most compromised and the most likely to get corrupted. But Canon also has a cloud feature, a cloud save feature, where you can take RAW photos or JPEG photos, and I think it even works with video, where it'll upload it directly to their cloud service and you have an immediate backup like that. It is kind of slow though, so you need to make sure you have enough battery and enough time too. So after I acquired the EOS R6, I really didn't touch the Canon EOS R for a while. And the reasons being that I really wanted to get to know the new camera that I had, because it does take a while once you get a new piece of technology to really get familiar with it. Also, I really felt like there wasn't anything that the Canon EOS R offered that I wasn't getting with the R6. Even with the lower resolution sensor that you get in the R6, and I believe it's a 20 megapixel sensor versus a 30 megapixel sensor on the R. Even with that difference, I really wasn't seeing that I was taking an image quality hit when I uploaded my photos to Lightroom. I'm definitely going to upload photos from both of my cameras and also make sure to label them so you can see what you would be expecting from the different sensors. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to take a picture of the same scene with both cameras and then and then crop in Lightroom. I know there's a ton of videos that already do that, so you'll definitely be able to find something like that on YouTube. For me, in this video, I really just want to share with you my experience with both cameras and what you could expect using it in real life scenarios. So I just realized that my external mic that I had on my camera wasn't plugged in, but now it is, so the audio quality should be better now. I'm not going to redo everything I just shot, but now it should be better. So like I said, when I initially acquired the Canon EOS R6, which I'm shooting on right now, this is the 4K 24 FPS in IPB, so that's what you can expect from the internal recording on the Canon EOS R6, and the quality is great, by the way, but I'll get to that. But like I said, when I first got that, I didn't shoot with this camera that much, but now I do find myself reaching for the Canon EOS R for certain situations. So some of the different scenarios in which I find myself wanting to grab the R over the R6 include documenting family time, taking a time-lapse movie or a set of time-lapse stills in bad weather, like when it's snowing or raining. I'll definitely grab for the R over the R6. The camera just feels like the weather sealing is higher quality than the R6, but I'm not completely sure about that. I vaguely remember reading an article that described the weather sealing in the R6 to be comparable to the R, and the weather sealing in the R5 was on a different level than both of those. But still, you know, when I actually feel this camera, it feels like it could take more abuse than the R6. And you know, to me, when I'm doing that photography outdoors where it is raining and snowing, I like to feel more comfortable with the camera I'm using. That's not to say you can't use the R6 in riskier weather scenarios. I would probably just make sure I have a cover for it, which to me is just a gallon Ziploc bag where I cut a hole in it. So aside from weather sealing, like I said, I think I like the general feel of the Canon EOS R. I like that premium feel, and I imagine that I would prefer the R5 over the R6, which I would hope, just because it's, you know, it's more than what is it? It's like what, $1,400 more than the Canon EOS R6. But yeah, I think that it's really cool that you can get such a high quality camera for such a low price now. So the Canon EOS R today is a really, really good value camera, even though it only has one card slot, and you know, it's kind of lacking with the frames per second that it can take when you are shooting photos. I think that for most people, you're going to be able to, you know, use this camera professionally and feel really comfortable with it. I believe that you can find this camera used for around $1,200 now. I've seen it for that price on Facebook Marketplace, and you know, I'm sure that some of the websites like KEH are going to have them at a lower price like that. Now, when you compare that $1,200 price, where you could potentially buy a used EOS R for that price, to the price that you're going to find the R6, which is $2,500, that is a pretty big difference, and you really need to ask yourself if you need those extra features on the R6, because that money could be spent towards the RF glass, which is really expensive, but worth it. Dare I say, worth it. This is the 85 1.2 right here, and it's an awesome lens for sure. So to me, obviously I bought the R6, so those features that I was getting in that were worth spending the money on a new camera like that. Otherwise, I would usually wait until the camera price dropped. Like, for instance, I'm eventually going to acquire the R5 because I like having a higher resolution sensor like that for certain situations, but I'm definitely going to wait until that price drops pretty significantly before I pick up that camera. But what I like about the R6 is that I have this camera where, and it's literally the first time I've ever felt this way about a camera. I feel like I can go into any professional situation, whether it's a wedding, or I'm taking photographs of a family, or I'm doing an engagement photo, or even sports, and there wouldn't be any limitations with the camera. I feel like as long as I know how to use the camera, I can get the pictures that I want, because that's how good this camera is. There hasn't been 1 second with this camera where I felt like the camera was getting in the way of the vision that I had. Some of the things that really lend itself to the ease of use with that camera are the 12 frames per second that it can shoot in. Like I said, the dual card slots are really important to me. Probably my favorite is the speed of the autofocus and the accuracy of the autofocus in this camera. So whether it's for photography or video, I can completely rely on this camera to get the shot. And it's really cool, and still kind of blows my mind coming from a DSLR to a mirrorless camera that I can shoot with these really fast primes like the 50 1.2 or the 85 1.2 and pretty much get the majority of my shots in focus, and I don't have to worry about if I'm getting the eyes in focus anymore. That makes a huge difference. And a big difference between the Canon EOS R and the R6 that to me is also worth the upgrade is that in low light, the autofocus acquisition is way more accurate, and it's also a lot faster too. So that specifically for a lot of different types of scenarios, like event photography where you're in darker rooms and you may not be able to use a flash, or if you're shooting a wedding and you're in a church where you're also not able to use flash photography, that's super important to make sure that you're not going to miss a shot. Another thing that kind of hurts that I wish the R had over the R6, and why I eventually plan on getting the R5, is that the in-body stabilization in the Canon EOS R6 is really awesome, and for me is so worth it, because when I'm on backpacking trips and I don't want to carry a tripod with me, I really can't believe how good the IBIS system is in the R6. I've gotten up to, I believe it's 8 seconds handheld with the 15-35 lens. That's super ridiculous, and it's so nice not having to carry a heavy tripod with you wherever you go. Now, you're still going to need something like that if you want to take pictures of the night sky and you need to do, you know, a 15 to 30 second exposure. But in most situations where the sun is still over the horizon, you're not going to need a tripod with the Canon EOS R6. But it is worth mentioning that the extra 10 megapixels on this camera, you can sort of notice the difference when you're taking pictures, and it is nice to have. But there is a compromise with that. The dynamic range on the Canon EOS R isn't nearly as good as on the R6. So, you know, for landscape photography, if you have a tripod with you and you're gonna be able to do the exposure bracketing and make an HDR photo, then the Canon R is gonna be fine. But if you don't have that, it is nice to have more dynamic range with the R6 to sort of play around with your files in post. Okay, so I'm gonna provide you with my closing thoughts. My camera battery is about to run out. So for most people, I think that you should look for a used Canon EOS R if you're just getting into the Canon mirrorless system and you don't need to rely on 2 SD cards for redundancy. Getting the Canon EOS R for $1,200 to $1,300 is an amazing value, and it will also allow you to invest in better glass, which is the route that I took with the Canon EOS RP cameras, and I don't regret that at all. I love the RF glass, I really do, and It's great for photo and it's great for video too, because you get even better stabilization with the EOS R6 and the EOS R5 paired with the RF lenses. Now, that being said, if you have the extra money and spending, you know, an extra grand on a camera isn't really gonna make much of a difference to you, then definitely, I would say definitely get the Canon EOS R6. It's gonna be way more versatile, and you aren't really gonna run into any limitations with. Even with all of the talk of overheating with the R6, I've never actually ran into that issue, and I've done video shoots that go over 2 hours. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about the R6 and the R. I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about these cameras, definitely let me know. It is nice that the R6 has a built-in interval timer for time-lapse photography. So with the Canon EOS R right here, you're gonna have to buy a separate remote, unless they have a firmware update. But if they haven't come out with that by now, I don't know if they ever will. Yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, see ya.